It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello, and welcome to the Metaphysical Mastery Podcast. This is a mother and daughter musing of different metaphysical topics. Today, we're going to talk about understanding consciousness. So we're going to talk about different states of consciousness. So I am the daughter. My name is Kate Maligan. I am an equine animal partnered coach and animal communicator. My mom has been involved with the Metaphysical Center of New Jersey for many years, and she's going to say hi now and introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I have been the former director of the Metaphysical Center in New Jersey, and I'm currently just a volunteer on the board, helping to put together, for example, the Psychic Fair they're holding this weekend. If you're interested, go to metaphysicalcenter.org, just for information.
Yeah, so my mom and I have our master's in spiritual psychology. We have been super interested in all different topics of esoteric, spiritual, metaphysical nature for a very long time. I actually used to be an atheist and found my way into spirituality, in part really through my mom and her recommending Louise Hay's work back in the day and the mind-body connection. And even though I was always an atheist, I took a class on world religions in college that really shaped me, and I also took a class on the psychology of consciousness when I was studying abroad in London, and absolutely loved it. And I really feel like many of the light workers on the planet, their mission, if you really talk to them, they say it's really to expand and grow and uplift consciousness. So we're going to talk about what that means today, but I think this is just going to be a good refresher for some who already know about different states of consciousness. And then for those that maybe don't, this is a really great education, which she's done a lot of research on to share and will you eventually have the ebook somewhere on the website?
Yes, we will. Yeah, since the new board took over, we've been trying to get a new webmaster to help us out and get all the information about the Divas That Care and the podcast and the ebooks that we've done for the past year. So it'll be fun to get that up and have that out there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a deeper dive on this information that you'll be able to access. But today we're going to do a short, 30-minute overview of the different kind of states of consciousness and what that really means. And it's interesting because every time we do a podcast the week of, I have all these things that pop up that make me think about whatever our topic is. And so I've really been, I had spiritual response therapy done to me this week, and I had, I've been working with the harmonic egg, and there's a lot of these different modalities that actually bypass the conscious mind and go into the subconscious mind. So we're going to talk about, okay, what does that even mean? Why is it important? And when you hear people say, I'm here to raise consciousness, what does that mean too? Why is that important? So let's start with, I know, Mom, you start to think about consciousness and the mind or different things. How do we understand, just the basic definitions of them to start?
Yeah, for me, that is really a big piece of it. And yet, scientists, theologians, philosophers, nobody has come up with, from my research anyway, nobody has come up with a definitive explanation for what those two terms mean. You'll find many, many places to get the information. And so what I'm giving you today is my understanding of what this means based on what I've heard from many different places. And I think the place to start, in my point, is when you talk about the conscious mind. What is the mind? And for me, based on the metaphysical principles, the mind really, the way I describe it, is it's kind of the workings of the consciousness. And by the consciousness, I'm talking about, people call it God, some people call it the all, some people call it spirit. There's a lot of names given to the creator or the source of all that exists. And I happen to like the all because there is nothing outside of the all. So if we think of the all as being consciousness, that is conscious of everything. Consciousness means awareness. That's as simple as it is. And so when you think of the all consciousness, it's awareness of itself, of everything that has the potential to be, and of nothingness. So when you look at consciousness, that's like the umbrella. And then my understanding is that the mind is the expression of that consciousness. Now, in humans, that mind shows up in two different ways. There's something called the lower mind and the higher mind. So I think what we're talking about for the most part when we're relating to the conscious, superconscious, and subconscious mind, we're really talking about all three of those, I mean, the two of them, the lower human mind and the higher mind. So did I try to confuse everybody, Kate?
Well, I mean, like, this stuff can be heady for me. So I also think of it as, like, we have a brain in our gut, our heart, and our head brain, and that, is a piece of where intelligence is. And, like, consciousness is, I mean, it's so funny. There was this movement at one point where everyone was talking about, oh, my gosh, everything is so conscious. Like, I had a website called Conscious Rockstar for a while because there was that element of, how do you coach from a conscious place? How are you more conscious? So break it down as to, like, obviously conscious is being awake, but it's a little bit more than that, right? And unconscious is more than being asleep.
Yeah, I guess you can use those two words for it. It is awareness. And so we have different levels of awareness. And so when you talk about because like Freud used the word the unconscious, in metaphysics, we talk about the subconscious. And there really is a very subtle difference between that there is no awareness. And subconscious means it's a very, very deep but critical part of our minds. And so that's the part I think I would spend the most time on the subconscious, because that's the part that really controls. There's an analogy, I think we were talking about it, of an iceberg. The conscious mind is like the 1% on the top of the iceberg, that which we see, and then there's the 99% of the iceberg under the water. And that's kind of what we're talking about here when we talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind really controls so many things that we are unaware of in our lives.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, well, like, for example, things that have happened to you as a child. You don't remember them consciously. You're not aware of them. And so, but they are there. They happen to you. And the subconscious mind it's like being tuned to a radio station. If there's the conscious mind has a certain frequency that it picks up, and the subconscious mind has a different frequency. And so it's almost like they use the example of a sponge in children. Children up to about the age of 7 are totally sponge-like. They hear everything, take everything in, and it does get stored, not in the conscious mind, but in the subconscious mind. So things that have happened to us, that we didn't even think twice about. A teacher in school saying, oh, my God, I can't believe you will never be an artist. And you're like, well, that sticks in our minds somewhere. And somewhere we develop a belief system, oh, I can't draw, I'm not good at art, or music or anything. We take stuff in that we don't even realize that we've taken into what I'll call our psyche. And it's really into our subconscious mind.
Yeah, so why do people use the word psyche? Like, does that represent everything? I mean, I guess the way I like to think of it is the conscious mind is what you're aware of. It's what you're thinking. It's what happens in your experiences in your mind. And the unconscious is like you're not awake at all, correct? And
right.
The conscious is what influences your life, but you're not always aware of it. And sometimes you're aware of it, and there's lots of interesting, like, healing modalities that can help you become aware of it, which we'll talk about. But, like...
Exactly.
How do we integrate the subconscious mind then to the conscious mind? Like, and is it important to do so?
Oh, I think it's critical to do so, because we tend to make a lot of our decisions consciously. At least we think that's what we're doing. We'll decide to do something or not do something, and really it's being controlled by that 99% of our mind that is the subconscious mind. So we think, oh, I can't do something, or I'm going to do something. And we don't really understand where that's coming from. We'll just make a decision. So if we can begin to work with our subconscious mind, as you say, you can do it through different healing modalities. Another way to critically do with it is just do some internal self-analysis. Go through some programs either on your own or with others. Meditation is a perfect way to get through something like that. Just go in and do a little, they call it self-hypnosis. You can use those subliminal tapes. You can do a lot of different things to actually bypass, because those things bypass the conscious mind. And I think that's where we can begin to then tap into what's really in that 99% of the iceberg that's below our conscious mind.
Yeah, so in the conscious mind, is that the monkey mind, or is it a subconscious mind impacting that monkey mind?
It's actually the subconscious mind, because what's coming up, it may be the conscious mind. If you're sitting in meditation and, your mind is, oh, I've got to go do this and I've got to make sure I have time for that, that's the conscious mind, because we have a to-do list and we're very aware of it. It's very conscious, and so it's foremost in our mind, our brain. The subconscious mind also brings things up for us, sometimes to look at it, and it's for our benefit, but it's still getting in the way of what we think we're trying to do. And in fact, if we just took that and just said, oh, that's interesting, and I can let that go because I don't need that right now, it doesn't become an issue to have the monkey mind. It's something that we are involved with, but we don't get stuck in. And I think that's what's important. One of the things I'd like to mention, Kate, is there something that I've always found fascinating. It's called organ language. And what happens is, because the subconscious mind, totally like a sponge, it takes in everything. It has no ability to understand humor or understand things that, words that are not, that we don't think about, we just are using. So, for example, and this was a personal example, I can remember so many times I'd say, oh, give me a break. Something would happen and it was like, oh, just give me a break. And I fell and broke my thumb. And the first thought that came into my mind when I did that is, I have got to stop saying, give me a break. Because the subconscious mind, the whole purpose of the subconscious mind is to manifest whatever the conscious mind wants. And so the conscious mind will send a message to the subconscious mind, and it's the subconscious mind's job to make that happen. That's its job, is to manifest our reality for us. So if you want to manifest what's in your conscious mind, you have to be thinking consciously. But if you want to just manifest what's in your subconscious mind, that's what's going to happen. It's going to do it either way. It doesn't matter. And so, I think that was what I called organ language, was something that I found very, very practical, because the subconscious mind will act on those words, even if it's not what you intended. You didn't mean give me a break, really, but it happened.
Are you saying organ language, like the organs in your body?
Exactly. It's called organ. That's the term for it, organ, like an organ in your body. Because they think of the subconscious mind as an organ, even though it isn't. It's part of what's called the etheric body. It's the energy body. There is no such organ for it.
Let's be clear, because people used to stand up in our master's program and say, oh my God, I had this negative thought about so has pneumonia, right? I'm picking up a random thing. And the professors would say you're not that powerful, right? And the thing to remember is the mind is incredibly powerful. It creates our reality. Our perception of things completely can create a very, some people can look at the rain. Someone was saying this the other day. You can look at the rain and be like, yes, the rain, we need it. We need so much rain because there's a drought and we got to get rain and it feels good. I'm going to go dance in the rain. I love it. It's just water. And some people can look at the rain and be like, oh my gosh, this is so negative. I can't work. There's nothing I can do. And, it's really our perception about the rain. But we didn't create the rain. We can go into some woo-woo topics about how you can do rain dances and manifest rain 100%. You can change weather patterns. I just told a client that this morning. I said, you can change the weather if you really, need to shift it for your event this weekend. Let's focus on like praying and seeing if we can shift the weather. If it's for the highest good to still do this event, we can shift the weather. So I know that there's those pieces, but it's, we're not creating everything all the time, so to speak. It's a weird thin line. Like, I mean, what's your response to this? Because I don't think we're that powerful to like cause an issue immediately, but I also know that if think about it constantly and you don't think about anything else, then you have a very high likelihood of creating something from that.
Exactly. I remember the example one time. If you have to get from one place to another across a field of, weeds, if you walk through once, by the time you get to the other side, nobody's even know that you walked on that path. But if you do it every day for a month, you're going to make a path. And that's exactly what we do with our neurons. We make a neurological path in it could be in the physical brains, either the enteric brain in your gut or the heart brain or the brain in your head, the cranial brain. But we are making neurological pathways the more unconsciously we think of something. So I wasn't consciously thinking, give me a break, but I said it enough so that my subconscious took that as a request. Now, you can think of it as being, I'm not saying I could do it for other people, but I certainly had that pathway built up in my own psyche. And when you use the word psyche, that's another word for some people use it meaning soul, some people use it meaning mind, some people use it meaning spirit. It has a variety of different meanings. But psychologically, I use it, for a psychological reason, psyche.
I don't know. I mean, I get stuck sometimes in the language because I'm like, I don't think we can make these things mean different things. Like, I think if we start making, things mean 5 or 6 different things, then how do we have any agreement on it? How do we do research? How do we have clarity? Like, we actually do need to define these things, in my opinion, which is why you and I got into a conversation before this around subconscious and unconscious, because I think a lot of people use the word subconscious or the word unconscious as the same thing, right? Oh, that's stuck in the unconscious. You need to see what's down there to bring it to light so that you can actually work with it and heal it, right? Awareness is the first key. So I honestly think consciousness and awareness are very similar, right? And you could potentially use those words interchangeably. But technically, the unconscious and the subconscious, you really shouldn't be using them interchangeably, correct? They're separate things.
There's a slight difference between the unconscious means literal no awareness. The subconscious does mean there is awareness that has been put there. As I said, it could be from a childhood teacher or a parent, something along the line that you've picked up. It could even be from a past life. It doesn't necessarily have to have happened here. And those things are with us. That's in the subconscious. The unconscious is not that. Although one thing I think we often forget, Kate, is that there are levels of everything. Nothing is really black or white. It's not like there's one thing and this is what consciousness and this is what unconscious and this is what subconscious. It's not exactly like that. There are levels of everything. So there's a very fine difference, but there is a difference between unconscious and subconscious.
Well, and of course, because even though someone may have told you, oh, you're just, you're dumb, you can't play this sport, it doesn't mean that you necessarily believed that, right? You might actually have used that as a way to rebel or say, well, you told me I'm not good at this, so I'm going to actually make myself great at this, right? And that we see those stories many times of people rising up against what people told them, like, you'll never sell a book, or you'll never, like Oprah was told certain stuff that did not become true, right? But she knew she was told that.
Mm-hmm. And see, that's when it's in the subconscious, so that the conscious mind still is connected very closely to the subconscious mind. And so if she can make that decision, or anybody can make that decision, well, I'm not going to buy into that, that's because they brought it up to look at it in the conscious light. And once you can look at it consciously, that's where you make your decision from intelligently, not just on something, that happens to you.
Right, because we're not, I guess the whole point is, like, there's so much around rescripting that can really change our reality. I think that's also really important, to do, is like, oh, just because so-and-so believes that doesn't mean that I need to, or I may have been told that, but how do I restrict it? I love what we were taught in our master's program around a little bit on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and a decent amount kind of on psychosynthesis, like the parts of you that believe different things, how do you give them new jobs or new awarenesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those tools, these are the kind of tools that we got in spiritual psychology that I think really people would benefit from having an understanding of them and practicing them, being able to use them. Absolutely.
So you found things that you said, ways people can work with their subconscious. What would you say those are?
Well, one of the things that people can use, directly is if they go into their inner life, whatever you want to call it, and mentally just make those things come normal, come up for you, so that you can deal with them. Once you know what you're dealing with, then you're able to do things. That's an example of working with the negativity or whatever's there. A very simple thing. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Silva Mind Development, and they have a wonderful statement I've used many, many times. It's called cancel. And so if a negative thought comes to you, or that you hear it from somebody else and you don't want it to come into your subconscious, right as soon as you hear it, you change it. You transform it by saying cancel. That doesn't allow it in, so the subconscious doesn't have to deal with it. You've already dealt with it on the conscious level. Once you've taken something in to your subconscious, it's very difficult to cancel something once it's in there. You really can't cancel it. So that's when you say, okay, what frightens me in this situation, or what don't I like about this situation? And you bring that up and look at it consciously, can then deal with whatever negativity. That's an important thing to do. I think it's also really important for me. It is, because I try to bring spirituality into a lot of what I do because of the metaphysics. I think we need to be very much aware of who we really are. We're not just, we've said it so many times, we're not just physical beings trying to have a spiritual experience. We're really spiritual beings, and we're here having a human experience in this lifetime. And I think if you are more aware of your divinity, then you're able to kind of see things from a different perspective that you might normally be able to. One of the things I read in our courses, and I'd forgotten all about it, it said you can judge how far you've come in your evolution by the amount of hurts that you feel in your lifetime. The less we become hurt and offended by others, the more evolved we are. And you know that when you realize that you are a divine being, and these are other just human beings having experiences like you are. So I think it's important to be aware of that. I think
the whole thing in the subconscious around self-saboteurs, and like one of them is the victim mindset. And it's like, if you're telling yourself that story, I mean, I've recently been a victim, and I don't subscribe to that archetype, so to speak, or language around it. Like, technically, okay, like I'm not, but I also feel like, who knows what blessings were actually meant to be in that situation, right? So I think it's like, if we can look at things, USM, our master's program, really was about neutrality, right? So they had the whole Rumi's quote, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field, I'll meet you there. And to me, like, real consciousness is about being in neutrality around what happens in life, which is a high spiritual path, which we don't always get to. But the soul can look at it all as growth and be like, oh, this is all, I'm just in my curriculum, right? It doesn't have to stay wounded, right? It can heal, is a big piece of it. And bringing love, kindness, and compassion, like, we can heal that hurt. And then we can grow acceptance for it as like part of our path. And then the third is really like, one of the things reason I became a coach, and my first company was called Conscious Rockstar, was like really because I wanted to help people make more conscious choices in the world. So they weren't just living in reactive, which I know I did for a long time, but they're more in flow. They're more in, I choose, like, getting up and setting an intention for the day, and like I choose into, experiencing this, right? Who I'm being while I'm doing, which is what the animals really teach. But that whole, like, I'm bringing consciousness to choosing this thought, I'm bringing consciousness to choosing this food, to choosing this person, to choosing this, whatever it may be, that there's really, we're not in that, the subconscious is very reactive, right? It's like, some people get really triggered by a boundary being crossed. Some people get really triggered when someone interrupts them. Some people get, everyone has their own thing. And so it's like noticing it and then not allowing the triggers to be there as much anymore is like a more free path. It's a more, it's ultimately a happier path. So I think that's like really, consciousness is one of the reasons I wanted to be a coach. And I came in at a time when everyone was like doing like, there was a conscious dudes movement, and there was, conscious film and conscious media is what we always called it. Like, there was more consciousness to it, meaning like there was more intention or more choice to what we were actually doing, rather than just like dealing with the insatiable ego, right? Which is just always going to be in better than or less than, and superiority and inferiority neither really feel good, rather than like coming into that space of like equality and neutrality and, love and kindness. They're very different energies. So I went off on a tangent there, but I just get like, the purpose of all of this is so that we are more intentional, we are more aware, we are more awake. Yeah. I don't love the whole, is someone woke? I'm like, I think of woke and all I hear is an egg yolk. I can't even hear the word woke. It's just one of my weird things. So like, I mean, woke is kind of like, oh, you're woke, I'm not woke, then there's comparison, right? And it's not about who's woke and who's not woke. Like, I don't even love that. What I like is just like, what stage of awakening are you in, right? Which is why I changed my horse business from equine rockstar to awakening with equines, because it's really not, it's not about, it's really about the awakening process. And it is a process. It's a process till the day we die.
Right. Absolutely. I think one of the other things, your thing that you mentioned is first thing when you get up in the morning, set your intention for how you want to be that day. You want to consciously make choices. I think another complementary to that is same thing at night. When you go to bed, I was brought up in my religion to something called an examination of conscience. But it's basically a daily review. You go through your day and you look at what went well, what did I do that I'm proud of, what are the things that I would like to change. So when I wake up tomorrow, I have a different perspective. I can do things in a different way than I've done them today. So I think it's both. Start and end your day, in a very conscious way when you're going to sleep and when you're waking up, I think would be important.
Yeah, we just have a few more minutes, but I'm curious, like, you also did some research on the superconscious. So what would you, and I think sometimes it's because I'm a psychology undergrad and a spiritual psychology master's, like what we always heard, the id, the ego, and the superego, right? And you hear about all of that Freudian understanding, but like what is the superconscious? Like what is that?
Another word for the superconscious, at least in the physical terms, is what is called the higher self. Remember I said the mind kind of has a lower mind and a higher mind, and the same thing is true of our, ego, and some people call it your soul, whatever. It's your higher self. It's the link that we have to our divine or universal mind. It's bigger than us. And it links the higher plane with actually, in metaphysics, there are 7 planes of reality. We are very conscious of them, very aware of them, the physical, the emotional, and the mental planes. The next plane up from that is called the Buddhic plane, which is kind of the home of the masters when you're studying metaphysics. So our higher self is able to tap in to that plane when we are doing things with our superconscious mind. So we want to. It's kind of like if you're in a state of meditation and you know when you've hit it, you feel this peace, this awe of being aware and very comfortable and confident. But when you're in your superconscious mind, you're always like that. It's not like you have to get there. You are walking that way. It's very difficult to do because we are so much in our ego and in our 3D reality. But that's what 5D reality is going to be, is walking in your superconscious mind all the time and operating from that point. So it's, and there's something called...
So that whole raised consciousness is literally an actual raise into a higher dimension. Because for so long, we were all saying, let's raise consciousness. I don't think anyone knows, what are we raising it to? And part of you and I have talked in the past around vibrations, and we've talked about power versus force and the higher vibrational frequencies. But it is 5D, and we can get there. The more we practice, the easier it is. I went to the stupa in Red Feather Lakes, Colorado yesterday, and even just being in a place that's already heightened energy and sitting there with the Buddha, and I don't subscribe to any one religion, but I do love Buddhism and what it teaches. I just felt it. I felt it because other people had brought that energy into the space. I felt it because I went into my heart, and the peace was there, and I felt it for hours afterwards, and that really is that's what we're supposed to be doing, is even just 5 minutes a day, taking time to raise that consciousness so that we are more, in the super consciousness. And then if we're in that space, Mom, does it displace the subconscious? Does the subconscious have less power, or less voice, or less power? How does that work? It doesn't, it never, as long as we're here in physical form, I think the subconscious mind is part of who we are, because that's all the experiences that we had, as I said, in this lifetime or other lifetimes. But as we begin to take control, a little bit, that's what mental mastery is all about. It's using the higher mind to control the lower mind. The lower mind, it's like a little kid. The little kid wants to do what they want to do, and the parent has to step in and say, okay, but you can't eat that much chocolate right now. You're going to get sick. And so the little kid has to learn. And the same thing is true of our higher mind and our lower mind. The lower mind just wants right what's in front of it. And and that we can't always do that. And that's why sometimes we'll react, because a lot of times the lower mind is coming from our gut brain. That's the connection where it is. And I think when that happens, we really are just, we're in spur of the moment. We're saying things, we're doing things without thinking. And that is very often coming from our subconscious mind. Whereas when we make conscious decisions, it's usually very logical, very controlled, thought out. And usually if it's connected with the heart, then it's also going to be compassionate as well. And we could talk about this. It feels like forever.
I know.
There's a lot
it goes on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there'll be a great handout that I am going to give to the Metaphysical Center to post on their website, so you can go there anytime and check it out. I'm not sure when it'll go up, but all of the podcasts we've done for Divas That Care, along with the book, Our Mothers, Our Daughters, that we just were in, all of the things that Divas That Care have put forth, in printed or form, like media form, we will have on the website so people can access them in the future.
Awesome. Yeah. So metaphysicalcenter.org. People are happy to check me out on katenelligan.com. I will also have links to all the podcasts there in the very near future. And I'm just glad we got to talk about this. I mean, I remember I was in awe when I learned it in college in Psychology of Consciousness. And I'm like, I still feel like there's so much stuff I need reminders of. And really, truly, as a coach or as a therapist or as a practitioner, to remember, oh yeah, this person's subconscious is really what's acting out right now. Can I have compassion for that? Can I work with that? Can I speak directly to that? What does that need? And how do we shape it and step into, for me, a lot of my work is bringing people to the present moment, because that's really where your power and your presence is. And the horses are so great at getting people present because of their size. But then from there, it's and I've experienced this with my goats, the intention to be in more 5D or higher vibrations, or to raise consciousness to the super conscious, and then to be in that space is just so powerful. I think it's really where we're headed. And there's so much there. So thank you for putting the research together, Mom, and being here as always. There's lots of other great podcasts on the Divas That Care network for people to check out, and we will get this one out. And if there's any topic that anyone's listening and wants to hear my mom and I discuss, pick her brain about, I have a lot of friends that always want to talk to you, Mom, about different topics. We would be happy to hear suggestions if you want to leave comments or send us notes or emails. to those websites, we would love to hear any topics you might want to suggest as well. So I hope that people will check out more information on this, and also just remember, like, what you're thinking may need to be examined in a really loving way, a compassionate way, and then to really understand that you have different parts of you that are speaking and working and operating, and to really choose wisely through intention so that you create the reality you most want to have, and really start with your thinking. And also know that's obviously very connected to your emotions. That could be we should do one on just emotional intelligence.
The whole thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, but ultimately, like, take dominion of your consciousness. And really the first step here is understanding it. So I'm glad we got to do a little bit of education today. Thank you to all who are listening.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.